relying heavily on the England players that performed at the World Cup. That's what Gareth Southgate has gone for. The Three Lions play away to Italy in Naples. That's this Thursday. And then they face Ukraine at Wembley after that. Some of the big news with regards to those called up, Cass, sees Ivan Toney recalled, having missed out for the World Cup squad. He was called up in the October, was that right? October break?
Yeah, around.
But missed out for the World Cup. He has been included. There were also some controversial inclusions, such as Harry Maguire, for example, also Calvin Phillips you could mention in there as well. Players that aren't necessarily getting game time for their clubs, but when it comes to playing for England, haven't necessarily put a foot wrong, you could say. Just looking and for your general thoughts on that England squad, Ivan Toney, for example, fully understand that decision?
Yes, warranted, merit. Everything he's done this season has been exceptional. You watch him week in, week out, Nat. I've seen some extraordinary performances, and I think England have to consider Ivan Toney for the Euros in 24. Maybe not to start in front of Harry Kane, but certainly be the biggest rival to him. I think he's deserved all of that. The biggest thing I've found about Ivan Toney has been every level it's been called upon. That, you know, he just keeps performing, and I don't see any different if he gets an England opportunity.
I suppose the big issue around Ivan Toney is this betting charge that hangs over him, and there'll be some that are saying, well, should someone be called up to the England squad when they have this charge hanging over them? Now, he has admitted some of them, but he is also contesting some of them, so that's why we're still none the wiser as to how this is going to conclude itself. And of course I'm biased, so I'm absolutely delighted that he's been called up. I think just in terms of his contribution to Brentford, he thoroughly deserves to be there. He is the second highest top scorer of an Englishman in the Premier League. And I was asked that question in general as well the other day about, well, why is Ivan Toney still allowed to play when you consider what's hanging over him? And my point was, well, he's not yet been found guilty. Yes, he's admitted to charges. I understand that in itself is a little strange, but you can't then ban somebody when he's still contesting stuff, because you don't know how long you're going to ban him for until he has that hearing. So that's why he's still allowed to play, I suppose, because they don't know how long he might get that ban for. But just in terms of his performances on the pitch, absolutely deserves to be in there. I'm absolutely chuffed for him. I hope he plays him.
Yeah,
that's the only thing.
I think everyone does. I think everyone wants to see Ivan Toney have a chance and, you know, getting on and showing what he's about, because he's unsettled a lot of players, centre-halves this season, where he's just shown what he's about. I mean, I'm trying to think, was it the last game where his hold-up play was just sensational? Everything that stuck to him, every ball.
The Fulham game.
Fulham game was it? I think it probably was. But I remember just watching it and thinking, wow, they can't stop him doing anything. He, you know, his little flick headers in behind, he was just doing brilliantly well.
Well, I think also he's a player that has just improved and improved and improved. I think he just gets better every week.
I can't get how he stayed in the lower league so long.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before.
I don't get it, because, you know, he what age did he join Brentford now? 24?
Something like that,
24?
Yeah.
You know, so for the age of 21, then he was getting goals and onwards, and no one had took a punt on Ivan Toney. And I'm sure there would have been interest, but I'm talking of a higher level. And the progression in his play has been nothing short of miraculous.
Obviously, he went to Newcastle. That didn't work out, unfortunately.
He was very young, though.
He was very young.
Yeah, he was very young.
And for whatever reason, that didn't work out. Went to Peterborough, and obviously that's where Brentford ended up buying him from. Maybe, you know, I would like to say that maybe it's just the right club for him. And he came to Brentford and he's kicked on from there. Did brilliantly at Peterborough. So again, that was the right club for him at that moment in his career. But he's moved on and kicked on at Brentford.
Can I give you some disappointing news?
No, I know. He'll kick on again, I'm sure.
No. Well, if the ban is not too lenient,
I know.
He'll be gone.
Oh,
you're going to lose him.
I'm not surprised in any way.
You're going to lose him.
And whoever gets him are going to get a gem. And we are going to be devastated to lose him. And I'd love to say the grass isn't greener, but I understand it doesn't work. So I can't, whatever I say won't help him, won't help us, unfortunately. But I have to believe in
Radio Brentford.
I mean, this is unfair.
There was other players left out of the England team.
There are, exactly. I want to get to Gareth Southgate, because this is what he had to say when he responded to claims that he's picking some players that are not playing well for their clubs, or in fact not even playing at all.
You know, we've got to pick our best players where possible, and then there's a balance between, do you go with a certain level of player who's not playing quite as regularly, or a level of player who's physically fit and doing well, but I'm not talking about specific names here, but as a general principle, I feel as though it's interesting talking to other coaches of national teams that they feel the same. You've got to try to pick your best players as long as they can get to a reasonable physical level. But we are shorter than the other big nations on depth of selection. I'm happy with the groups that we've got to select from and the quality we've got to select from, but in certain positions we are short of depth.
Short of depth? Does that make sense to you?
England are never short of depth.
That
never.
sort of startled me a little bit, because when you think about some of the players that have been omitted or just haven't even... I mean, I can't understand what Fikayo Tomori has to do to get into this England squad. He is earning so much praise in Serie A, and yet he's been overlooked once again. I can't understand that at all. I think he's a tremendous defender. And like I say, legends of the game of Italy are bigging up this player, and yet he's been overlooked once again.
Yeah, it happens. I can't give you a valid reason, Nat, for why Timore's not been given an opportunity. I mean, it's a tough one, because sometimes when you play abroad, you're a little bit forgotten, even though people say, well, hold it, he's playing for, AC Milan. He's at a big football club, and you can watch him week in, week out. But being away, and I don't know, Gareth, sometimes, you have your own opinions on players. I mean, there were some tough calls. I mean, James Ward-Prowse got left out now, and he's done okay for Southampton this year. He's chipped in with a few goals for him. He's okay. Southampton are struggling at the wrong end of the table. Connor Cody been left out, and you could say, well, he didn't kick a ball in the World Cup. He was just there, and maybe Gareth just felt, I need to move on. And Ben White to me was the one that, struck me as, well, something must have gone on in Qatar due to Ben White, because he's not in this squad, and for whatever reason Gareth has left him out.
Some other notable omissions: Raheem Sterling
injured,
Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Well, Trent's not been good.
No.
I mean, I'd love to sit here and wax lyrical about Trent as a player going forward, but there is, Gareth has always said he wants a better defender. Really, in many words, it's quite clear he wants someone who can defend way better. And Trent has spent most of this season chasing wide men and seeing the back of their shirts because they're getting away from him.
Ollie Watkins, unlucky?
Hard. That was a tough one. He's been in really good form for Villa. Yeah. He deserved, I think, a call-up. You could have made space for an extra forward.
Yeah, I'd have thought so, considering he's defensive-heavy in that squad. Yeah. But... yeah, it would have been nice to see Ollie Watkins called up.
I think he'll get back in though, Ollie.
Be great. Because just on form alone, he definitely deserves to be in there. Was it 6 in his last 7? Something like that? Yeah. Absolutely fantastic form that he's been in, Ollie Watkins. Just missing out though. And I'm sure he's still very much in the thoughts of Southgate going forward.